What's up, guys? My name is Elias, and Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four First Steps is officially in theaters, kicking off Phase 6 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Thank the Lord I've been able to see this movie twice, so that way I can give you my full-fledged, spoiler-filled thoughts on the movie. Can't wait to give you my take. Let's just dive right into it. Let's get it. After 30 years of attempt after attempt after attempt to make the Fantastic Four a critically acclaimed box office juggernaut, WandaVision director Matt Shakman was hired to make it happen, and let me just say, the man did Marvel's first family true justice. Out the gate, we're introduced to this retro futuristic version of the 1960s of Earth 828, a completely different Earth from the mainline MCU. Our married heroes Reed Richards and Sue Storm, whose chemistry is played to perfection by Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby, find out that they're pregnant after a couple years of trying with no success, which Reed gets reasonably worried as even the smartest worrywart this side of Doc Brown has trouble coming to grips with the inevitable chaos that comes from having a child, albeit one with potential superpowers. We're then shown archive footage of the team's space expedition pre superpowers, where they're filled with like wonder and the curiosity of exploration. I really love the part where you can hear their screams over the audio as their newfound powers take hold of their bodies. Like, we don't need to see it, but it's obvious how horrifying it must have been to, as Reed puts it later in the film, have your molecules compromised. Once they come back to Earth with powers, they're embraced with open arms as the world's premier superheroes, the Fantastic Four, basically becoming the biggest celebrities around. We then get a cool little montage of them saving people in varying situations, which was a nice way of showcasing their popularity, competence, and overall heroism that the public associates them with. The movie then introduces us to Paul Walter Hauser's Mole Man as he's getting arrested. And let me just say that this dude is a great actor and he seems to be everywhere nowadays. I first saw him in Cobra Kai, and then subsequently he's been in different shows and movies. So casting him as the underground recluse Mole Man was very interesting. I like that he plays the role kind of over the top and corny, like the character himself knows that he's in a comic book movie. It's kind of refreshing. But getting back to the narration of their history on the Ted Gilbert show, I believe it's called The Curtain finally opens for the team, who are suited and booted to the nines. Now, I'll admit that I wasn't feeling these suits when I first saw the concept art for them, but seeing them in action made me realize that they are perfect. They pop, stand out, are comic accurate, and pretty instantly iconic. I'm sure they're going to be updated for the sequels, but I hope we get to see them a little longer, at least in the next two Avengers films. Anyway, Michael Giacchino's infectious score plays in the background, unveiling the Fantastic Four, leading up to the title card with that awe-inspiring Fantastic Four. Man, that theme gets me so pumped. The family dinner scene that was at the forefront of the marketing leading up to the movie's release sees Reed and Sue being late, to which Johnny calls them out. But Ben picks up on their big announcement from their reactions. Everyone starts hugging. Johnny throws a couple jokes in there about Reed being out of his depth, and there's just this refreshing sense of happiness in the air. So within the first 10 minutes, we now know the tone of the film, the fantasy of the world at large, and the dynamic of that family element exuding through the cast chemistry and charisma. The story here is one of just a huge familial bond, more so than that of the Fast and Furious franchise. Family. Side note, and I do hope it's not just recency biased, but I think the MCU's version of the Fantastic Four has become my favorite version of all. I love that the movie sidesteps showing their complete origins. We get it. Space mission went awry. They gained powers. They became the world's first and only superheroes. Yada yada yada. So we can hit the ground running. The cast here plays their respective roles to a T. Though a part of me misses Chris Evans as Human Torch, Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things plays the heartfelt playboy remarkably, while actually having a prominent role in the story itself, which is something we haven't remotely seen since '07 when Johnny became a Super Skrull to fight Doom. Eben Moss Backrack's Ben Grimm was the one I was most worried about due to his soft sounding thing, but within a scene or two, my worries were depleted. He is the thing, a caring uncle type that loves to punch things, and his clobbering time later on in the movie made me laugh so dang hard too. The family dynamic is fully developed here, with a baby Richards thrown into the mix, making the reactions to the world-ending stakes at large that much more compelling. I love everything about this new team because it just seems like they really love being Earth's protectors, whereas they seemed more reluctant in previous versions. Anyway, with old timey music playing in the background, we're treated to breakout character Herbie, the assisting robot built by Reed, hilariously baby proofing the complex from when Baby Richards pops out. I wish this little guy was real because he is just so awesome and super helpful at that. He kind of reminds me of BB-8 from Star Wars: The Force Awakens, or R2D2, whichever generation you prefer of Star Wars. Meanwhile, Reed works on a teleportation device that he has so far only been able to utilize on an egg. This will be prominent later on in the movie, by the way. The team also receives some space signals that they apparently get from time to time, having previously acknowledged the existence of alternate dimensions, aka the multiverse, as well as other species that are in the galaxy. While Reed works on the baby scanners so they can detect if the baby is going to have any superpowers, this dude is just constantly tinkering, by the way. Herbie's building the baby's crib, to which Sue calls Reed out and says that's his responsibility. But in true Reed Richards fashion, he says, anyone can build a crib, only I can build this. This dude is just too smart for his own good. To ease his worries, Sue shows Reed the baby resting easy in her womb with her force fields, and it just feels like every little moment we get with this couple just kind of appeases the romantic in me. Call me soft, I don't care. Transitioning over to Ben walking down the streets of his old neighborhood, some guy calls out, "Say the thing!" But apparently his famous catchphrase is only something he says in the cartoon. So it's a nice little comedic moment that acknowledges his ridiculous yet iconic catchphrase, especially from the cartoons and whatnot. He messes around with some kids by pretending to throw a car at them. This is in typical Ben Grimm fashion. And might I say, I do like that this is like a less tortured, more accepting version of the character where he's content with being this rock like being because he's able to help people from it. And Ben meets this lady from Russian Doll on Netflix, who he clearly has a crush on. I forgot her name, honestly. I think it's Roz, but he's been presumably out of the game for a while due to being a superhero and whatnot. So it's evident that he probably also doesn't want to be rejected because of his condition and whatnot. So I do just wish that the lady was Alicia Masters, though, just to kind of tie more Fantastic Four lore into the movie itself because that's Ben's typical love interest. But it didn't ruin my experience or anything, and we'll probably get to see Alicia Masters sometime down the road anyway. Typical Reed Richards fashion, Reed baby proofs the world, essentially, name dropping a bunch of their most popular supervillains and where their hideouts are as he sends the police everywhere to patrol them. This is one of my favorite scenes because all of the callbacks to their most popular villains made the comic book fan in me very happy. However, this is when the plot and the main conflict at hand is officially thrust forward. The sky opens up when Ozark alum Julia Garner's Silver Surfer, this time being the Shala Bal version of the character who is an alien from the planet Zenla, descends down to the city streets. By the way, the special effects that brought this character to life are immaculate, and the visuals when she uses her powers are pretty mind blowing. But moving on, she makes this grand speech to New York about how everyone should spend their last moments with loved ones and enjoy their time together. It's a chilling sentiment, especially when she says one of the dopest lines in the marketing: I herald his beginning, I herald your end, I herald Galactus. Cut the Inception noise in. She then takes off into space, and Johnny chases her with everything he's got. And once he catches her board, she looks at him like, "No, you didn't," and flings him off her board, but not without giving him a message in her native tongue. Reed then recognizes the pattern, figuring that what the surfer is saying is indeed true. Galactus will come and disappear the entire world. So much to Johnny's excitement, the team finally plans to go to space. In the meantime, Johnny is trying to decipher the surfer's language, which I do love because it subtly displays his contribution to the team through his intelligence and not just being a quipster. Just something I always wondered about Chris Evans' Human Torch. Why was he there? Like, why did they choose him to go to space? I don't know. Did I miss that? I probably missed that. The team then gives a speech to the world at large, letting them know that they're about to go see what Galactus is all about. A montage commences of the team mulling over their lives before they go to space, which includes beautiful scenes like Ben reminiscing over his old self on the TV, as well as Reed and Ben bonding, where Reed confesses his overall guilt regarding the incident that gave them their powers, to which Ben forgivingly replies, "You gotta stop beating yourself up over that, man. And also, you're not the smartest guy in the world." I've always loved their friendship in every medium. Reed and Sue spent some quality time talking about their future until it finally cuts back to the speech of the F4 vowing to protect the world. The team finally goes into space to meet Galactus, where Johnny and Ben pretend to fall asleep to read Yappic, which is really what two younger brothers would do to an older brother anyway, until he says something they want to hear, which is, if he's a big space dude, you can punch him out. It doesn't matter, whatever. And then they knuckle up. That was so funny to me. I love their brotherhood in this movie. Once they approach Galactus' ship, they're sucked in by this tractor beam that prevents them from escaping or they risk burning out their engines. Silver Surfer then approaches them by literally phasing into the ship, indicating that they were never safe, Jack. Like, ever. And she tells them that they shouldn't have come, but that Galactus will see them. Why? Well, if the light that shines on Sue's stomach is any indication, so the team follows Silver Surfer into Galactus' ship. Johnny risks burning through his oxygen reserves to talk to her just so he can find out that the message that she gave him earlier means die with yours. He says to Ben that went well, which is, classic Johnny. but this message die with yours. Now in her speech to sorry if that was too loud from the mic, but in her speech to New York, um she came off as kind and reserved and more loving and regretful than outright malicious. And this sentiment is played up here with her message die with yours. She cares for life clearly, but she knows that the sacrifice she made that made her Silver Surfer, it rings in her head constantly. And she, like I said, she cares for life. She doesn't want to see it end, but the fact that she has helped end a lot of these worlds, she just knows what it is. She knows, look, listen, your world's gonna end one way or another, so go die with with your loved ones. Go say your last words to them. Say what you've always wanted to say. Stuff like that. And I just think that's a really cool. That's a really cool. In 2007, he was kind of also the same way, Norrin Rad, that version of the character, but here at least I don't know. We get more of her background. We seem more sympathetic toward her. I don't know. I just at first I was very skeptical. I really was hoping for the Norrin Rad version of this Silver Surfer, but I ended up really liking Shala Ball, and it made me kind of curious to like read her comic books and know a little bit more about her. So shout out to Julia Garner. She killed that. So the team approaches Galactus, who back then was a glorified fart cloud. And he is now this hulking, mile high figure looming over the F4 in a lonely throne just to try to stave his hunger. Seeing this movie in IMAX was a mind boggling treat as you really get to see his mountainous size and scale in full glory. After nearly 20 years of Galactus being seen in the public eye as this, big giant nothing that did nothing in the 2007 movie, Kevin Feige saw fit to give us a true blue version of the planet devouring just demon. He's evil on evil. Like this man is just straight up eating planets left and right. And while there's really no sympathizing with him, the context of him being an entity billions of years old who was dealt the crappy hand of having to survive by eating trillions of lives at a time makes him almost a tragic character than just an outright villain. I could be reaching though. I don't know. As the team tries to negotiate with him, he agrees to spare the planet, but only at the cost of giving him the baby growing in Sue's womb so he could take over as the new Galactus, essentially. They quite obviously refuse, which angers Galactus, so he uses his power to make Sue's water break. Johnny hastily attacks Galactus's valve pump things through which he ingests planets, allowing them to escape through this black wormhole. But the speedy Silver Surfer is gaining on their tail in the scene that contains some of the coolest visuals in the entire film, albeit probably in the entirety of the MCU. So the team approaches Galactus, who back then was a glorified fart cloud. And he is now this hulking, mile high figure looming over the F4 in a lonely throne just to try to stave his hunger. Seeing this movie in IMAX was a mind boggling treat as you really get to see his mountainous size and scale in full glory. After nearly 20 years of Galactus being seen in the public eye as this, big giant nothing that did nothing in the 2007 movie, Kevin Feige saw fit to give us a true blue version of the planet devouring just demon. He's evil on evil. Like this man is just straight up eating planets left and right. And while there's really no sympathizing with him, the context of him being an entity billions of years old who was dealt the crappy hand of having to survive by eating trillions of lives at a time makes him almost a tragic character than just an outright villain. I could be reaching though. I don't know. So as the team tries to negotiate with him, he agrees to spare the planet, but only at the cost of giving him the baby that's growing in Sue's womb so he could take over as the new Galactus, essentially. They quite obviously refuse, which angers Galactus, so he uses his power to make Sue's water break. Johnny hastily attacks Galactus's valve pump things through which he ingests planets, allowing them to escape through this like black wormhole. But the speedy Silver Surfer is gaining on their tail in a scene that contains some of the coolest visuals of the entire film, let alone the entirety of the MCU. From here on out, I was at the edge of my seat because the space sequences combined with the ongoing plot really push you to feel the relatable stakes while all of this Jack Kirby esque science fiction is going on. And during their escape, as Johnny tries to shoot down the surfer and Ben tries to outmaneuver her, Sue officially starts going into labor, making for one of the trippiest and most blindsiding moments in the MCU. Like, I never thought I'd see that in an MCU film. Sue urges Johnny to kill the Silver Surfer because she wants to take his nephew. And I love that because it's like, dude, she gives no F's. That woman is going into labor. Like, against all odds, baby Franklin is finally born as they escape the clutches of the Silver Surfer with Sue's invisibility ability. That's fun to say. And the team end up making it back to Earth with Sue holding baby Franklin in her arms. So they hold a press conference to let the people know of Galactus's demands. And the non-cynic in me, the optimist, I should say, would like to think that once people hear that he was trying to have their newborn baby usurp the Planet Eater's throne, that they'd be more sympathetic. But I guess with billions of lives on the line, they actually turn on the Fantastic Four, saying that they should have given the baby up for the fate of the world, which I'm sorry is absolutely insane. Like, I get that it's not your kid, but imagine if it was, right? Imagine if it was. Would you be able to do it? I don't think so. I don't think so. But in one of my favorite Reed Richards moments, a reporter asks Reed, "Are we safe?" And Reed replies, "I don't know." Like, that gives me chills. Why? Because when the smartest man in the world is unsure about your safety, I'm sorry, but you just might be cooked. Like, in all honesty, Reed really doesn't have a plan to solve the issue, which causes him to kind of go into panic mode, seemingly unable to comprehend just what kind of entity Galactus even is. And with the world falling into chaos, Sue decides to make a speech outside the Future Foundation or Baxter Building, whatever you want to call it, with Franklin in hand to show people what family really means to them. That the world is their family, and that she would never sacrifice Franklin for the world, but she would also never sacrifice the world for Franklin. The crowd feels that much more secure, and more importantly, her words ring like dynamite in Reed's ears. He figures out the plan by latching onto something she said, moving heaven and earth for those she loves. So Reed, in Patrick Star fashion, decides to use the teleportation device he had been working on to move the Earth and all its inhabitants to somewhere that Galactus won't be able to find them. By uniting the world and creating a peace the likes of which had never been achieved before, everyone all over the globe begin to do their part in helping build the teleportation bridges to teleport Earth elsewhere, as well as conserve their energy usage in order for the machines to work properly when it comes time to activate them. Reed and Franklin do a bit of bonding in a comedic yet sincerely heartfelt scene where he wonders if the baby is a space god and that he's tired of analyzing him to figure out who he is. He wants Franklin to show him, even though Franklin, a newborn, shows him that he just has pee in his pants. I love the dad stuff here, man. It's awesome. So the time finally comes to use the teleportation bridges, but the Silver Surfer swoops in at the last second to destroy all of them around the world, leaving New York's for last, where she attempts to retrieve the baby. This is when I facepalm myself because I should have seen it coming, but I did not. As she goes for the last bridge, Johnny puts up a transmission around the city to distract her and also to reason with her and appeal to her past, revealing that he knows her story, that he knows she sacrificed her soul to spare her world. The transmission is of her home language, her home world, at first putting her in a state of regret. But then of other planets she let die, doing Galactus's bidding, which causes her to freak out with rampant guilt. She flies above the clouds where Johnny tries to either offer himself as the new herald to protect Franklin or have the surfer help them. Unfortunately, she denies both and she proceeds to disappear into the sky. Having been bought a little bit of time now with one teleporter standing, Reed thinks of a bonkers plan to get Galactus to come to Earth so they can use the machine to send him into a black hole to be stranded in space without his ship. Here's the thing. Had to throw that in there. The only way to do so, Sue figures out, is to use Franklin as bait. No one likes the plan, but Reed and Sue know it's the only way. The couple have a final moment with the baby to really contemplate what they're about to do, but agree to rid the threat of Galactus no matter how dangerously risky doing so may be. In consideration of the bystanders to this insane plan, they reluctantly enlist the help of Mole Man, who is just soaking up the fact that the F4 even need his help. Sure, he trusts Sue Storm, but he truly revels in asking Reed to beg him for help, asking him to spread it on thick, which is so weird but like so funny at the same time. And after a combo with Sue, he agrees to host the entire city in Subterranea, his underground domain. Which, in hindsight, it was probably good to ally with the dude who runs an entire underground network in the city because Lord only knows what kind of damage he could inflict on the wrong side of things. Leading to the climax of the third act, Galactus arrives on Earth. The gigantic being lands in the water and lifts the ground up to sniff it, which Johnny looks at him like, what is wrong with this guy? Subtle facial cues equal my kind of comedy. I've seen a lot of chatter online too regarding Galactus looking at the Statue of Liberty weirdly. And aside from the hilarious meme responses I've seen, I think he was just sizing it up to presumably realize he really is the biggest thing out there on this planet. Like we worship the Statue of Liberty apparently, and he's like, if that's all they got, I mean, I'm this is gonna be a cakewalk. I don't know. That's just what I got from it. Anyway, he searches for Franklin by scanning the empty city and finds him sitting at the teleporter pad. Galactus realizes it's a trap after the team attack and blind him to switch out the baby with an empty basket, to which he calls them clever little creatures, or something like that. He proceeds to stop over to the Future Foundation where Franklin is actually being protected by Herbie. The team try to stop him by displaying their awesome power. Ben tries to swing a truck at Galactus, but he catches it, then tosses Ben into space, and Johnny ends up catching him. Reed turns Galactus's ingestion valve, but Galactus grabs him and stretches him out like linguine. Johnny flies Ben back down, continuing the running gag throughout the film where he tries to get Ben to say his famous catchphrase from the cartoon. Ben initially refuses, but is hilariously goaded into screaming, it's clobber time, and flies into Galactus' face with his whole body. Galactus then drops Reed, but unfortunately the attacks weren't enough as Galactus reaches Franklin and tells him that he is the salvation he had been seeking from his prison of a throne, cursed by his own appetite. A lot of emotions going on in this scene. There's stakes, there's humor, there's action. It's the whole nine with this one. Sue's mother mode kicks in and she gives it her all to push Galactus back before he can escape with Franklin, which displays just how powerful she really is. She implores Reed to get Franklin, to which he does by scaling some buildings, grabbing him, and floating safely down, which is one of the coolest visualizations of stretchy powers that I've ever seen. Ben knocks some pillars down to loosen Galactus's grip of a building. I mean, everyone pretty much just plays their part. But Johnny Storm, in hothead hero fashion, also attempts to sacrifice himself to knock Galactus into the black hole in a heartfelt moment of him telling the team to tell Franklin that Uncle Johnny loves him. Like this dude is a hero. I had no idea. Fortunately, at the last second, Silver Surfer saves him and ensures she sacrifices herself instead, blasting into Galactus's chest to knock him into the black hole. Something tells me we just haven't seen the last of either of them, though. But I mean, it was a really, really cool scene, albeit kind of cliche. I mean, I kind of figured she would come in and save the day. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that, when I was in the theater and that happened, I was like, yes, let's go. And my girl looked at me and I was like, I'm sorry, my bad. Though the team has won, with Franklin safely in Reed's arms, Sue, having exerted too much power to stop Galactus, seemingly dies. Which I'm not gonna lie, this is the part that made me cry both times I saw it. Like, Like uncontrollably, I was like, I don't even know what's happening to me right now. Reed's desperation, I think, combined with Johnny's tears for his sister and baby Franklin crying to touch his mother, like it was just too much, man. It was too much, and I was very surprised that a Fantastic Four film made me feel this. But here's the thing: Franklin puts his hands on her, and he ends up healing her so she can live again. The little powerhouse did it. He really is so much more than even the little space god that they thought he might be. And I said powerhouse because that is what he's called in the comics. He is literally an absolute G. Like the stuff that he's done in the comic books, Franklin Richards is going to be a problem. Now, stay with me here because we're about to finish up. So, the F4 are being celebrated on TV again for saving the world, but duty calls, which leads to everyone, including Franklin, to rush to the Fantastic Car. To end the movie, well, by the way, before I even continue that, the Fantastic Car is absolutely awesome. There's actually one scene, especially when Silver Surfer comes down from the sky in New York, where they're in the car and they all just kind of like step out of the car real cool as soon as it parks and doors open and stuff like that. One of the coolest scenes in the movie too. But yeah. So to end the movie, there's a hilarious gag involving Franklin's car seat, which just shows how clueless even the world's greatest superheroes are, but still displaying their constant or consistent rather teamwork. They fly up, and the movie rolls to credits, led out once again by Michael Giacchino's fantastic score. I'm sorry, I should have did that was bad. That was bad. Now, there are two credit scenes. The first one, midway through, involves Doom chilling with Franklin, which is obviously alluding to the kid playing a huge part in Doom's schemes come Avengers Doomsday next year. In the comics, not only has Franklin, again, aka Powerhouse, made Galactus his herald, but he's also created his own pocket universes as a child, as well as his own multiverse. Like what? Like I can only imagine what Doctor Doom is going to use him for. And again, as much as I don't really like the casting of Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom, it is cool that he was the one who showed up in this scene and not a body double. And I think I heard somewhere where it had they shown Robert Downey Jr.'s face, it would have just confused people more than got people excited for what the future holds. I like that they did this. It didn't seem like it was trying to do too much fan service, but also it was like, listen, this is what we're teasing next. Um, and like I said, I think Robert Downey Jr.'s face just would have confused a lot of people because again, they associate him with Iron Man, which is one of the reasons I did not want him cast as Doctor Doom. But hey, I'm not the guy in the chair casting people, so it is what it is. Um, but it was a really cool scene. It drove the point forward. Look, we're getting Doctor Doom next year. He's clearly going to use Franklin in his plans for what I don't know. Maybe to create Battle World, or you could go a number of ways with it because this is the MCU. It doesn't follow the comics to a T, but it does take a lot from the comics. So sorry that I keep on burping and coughing or whatever. I think I'm dying. Like, I don't know what's happening to me, but anyway, it was a really cool mid credit scene. Before the end credits scene, a tribute to Jack Kirby, who was the co-creator of the Fantastic Four and a multitude of other Marvel heroes alongside Stan Lee, shows up on the screen that says, "If you look at my characters, you will find me. No matter what kind of character you create or assume, a little of yourself must remain there." Which is a direct quote from the man himself. The tribute then reveals that his birthday was August 28th, hence why this movie takes place on Earth 828. And I mean, it just goes to further prove that this movie just kind of likes to hit you in the feels even when it's over. So, thank you, Mr. Kirby, for helping create the Fantastic Four. Um, Without you, we would not have gotten Marvel Studios, and we sure as heck would not have gotten this awesome Fantastic Four movie. Last, the end credits scene is the intro theme song to the F4's cartoon show in universe until Herbie turns the TV off. It's cute, nothing you need to stay for per se, but I'll be darned if it isn't so catchy that I wasn't singing it once I left the theater. Read the science left and right. Mad catchy. Another thing I did forget to mention though is that there are some cool cameos from the OG cast coming back from the unreleased 1994 movie. Here's hoping we get at least the '05, '07 cast back in Secret Wars and maybe some redemption for the 2015 cast for that muy terrible movie that they were in. I don't know how it sounded Italian. Muy terrible. So, nevertheless, what are my overall thoughts on First Steps? Well, first off, this guy wasn't even in there because he was in a deleted scene. Apparently, they cut John Malkovich out of the whole movie. Why? Why? That was not really a big deal. Apparently, he was just playing this guy called Red Ghost, who was like a minor character. It's actually the guy who runs one of the apes that Reed kicks in the beginning of the movie. But it would have been nice to see him at least in the MCU. Maybe they'll use him in a different role now that he's been cut out. Who knows? In all serious, I think I'll just reiterate what I said in my spoiler-free review. It's fantastic. Easy 9 out of 10 for me. If there was any way for Marvel Studios to bring the Fantastic Four into the MCU, then this was the perfect way to do it. Sure, a lot was riding on the shoulders of this movie to break the Fantastic Four curse of low box office returns and abysmal critic scores, and thankfully, against all odds, this one absolutely delivered. The world itself is vibrant with wacky villains and comic booky colors throughout. And as I said before, if this movie and Superman are any indications, I think we're comfortably living during a renaissance of larger than life comic book movies. And you best believe I'm here for it. Overall, with quick paced thrills, visually stunning set pieces, and instantly iconic performances, First Steps may have just powered through into my top 10 favorite MCU movies, though I'd probably have to really sit down and rank them. And I cannot wait to see what else is in store for Marvel's new First Family. Avengers Doomsday just can't get here fast enough. But there you have it, guys. My spoiler filled take on the Fantastic Four First Steps. Have you seen it yet? Obviously, if you have not, you should not be watching this video. Go ahead and go check out my spoiler free review of anything. But obviously, if you're here, you probably have seen it. What did you think of it? What were your favorite parts, your worst favorite parts? The highs and lows. Who was your favorite character? Your favorite suits, teams? Go check out those other videos that I've made. Comment down below. And if you like this video, consider hitting that like button, subscribe, follow, whatever you're watching this on, and share this video too, so that way others can join in on the conversation. I had a blast doing this one, guys. It's a good year for comic book movies. We've had Thunderbolts, Superman, now Fantastic Four. I'm probably missing one or two there, but whatever. Um, and yeah, I can't wait to see what's in store for next year. And honestly, thinking about it now, I might actually do an MCU ranking. So if that's something you guys be interested in to see, then let me know. But otherwise, until next time, take care and God bless.